here at America F1. And cue the music. Where are my music people? Oh, it's me. Oh, that's right. It's me. Ugh.
Yeah, America F1. America F1. It's a golden run. America F1.
All right. I just love those intros, Scott. I do. I
Mhm.
do. I do. I do.
I
Now,
do.
Scott, we're going to start off with Mclaren in a 1-2 with Oscar Piastri, your buddy that likes to have these nice big trophies. And off you go, Scotty. What do you have to say about McLaren this week?
I got to tell you, you are looking at one hell of a ferocious world championship fight. Last year at the Chinese Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri finished over 40 seconds behind Lando Norris. And
Wow.
now he smoked him by 6 seconds. And now he's drawn to within a few points of him in the Drivers' Championship. He's only 10 points behind. And he came in second in the sprint race. He destroyed him in that too. I think we're going to have a little bit of a Drivers' Championship fight on our hands at McLaren. We may be having another Senna versus Prost this year. They clearly have.
Oh, come on. Don't go that far, Scott. Come on. Calm it down a little bit.
They've got the dominant car. They've got the no one's car is even close, Sherm. And they've
You're
got
right.
two great drivers. I think we have a Senna versus Prost on our hands.
Who's Senna? Who's Senna and who's Prost?
Oscar Piastri is probably Prost. He's the sort of professorial type. Lando's a little more the passionate kind of guy, so he's probably more the Senna type. Not that they're clones of each person, but I think we're going to have a huge fight on our hands between the two of them. I don't think the team's going to know what to do. I think the team orders in Australia blew things up with Piastri. I think he went crazy because they were wrong, as I said then. They were insane to do that in the first race, the kids' home race. And you saw, I think Piastri came roaring back at China to prove a point, never to do that again. So I think we're going to have a fight. And I got to tell you, there are two huge beneficiaries of the team fight. And that is Max Verstappen and Mr. Consistency himself,
George Russell.
Oh,
George Russell. I mean,
and
this guy.
they're close. So they could take points off each other. I think it's going to be fair. They could take each other out. I think it's going to be, who knows what's going to happen when they potentially get slowed down when those flexi wings have to come off the front. So we've got quite a season on our hands, Sherm.
I think we do. And I like what you said about McLaren is not ready to to manage both of these two when it gets down to it. Because we saw it last year, all the mistakes that they were doing. And if they would have managed it earlier, maybe Lando would have had a better shot at winning the title last year, but they didn't. And I think it's going to snowball because when it gets down to it, and they're both neck and neck to win the driver's title, ooh, I think they're going to pick Lando. I really do.
You got the 2007 situation with Lewis versus Fernando and have a little Kimi sneaking in the back door too.
Oh, that would be awesome. Can you imagine George Russell winning a world title because the McLarens are fighting it out and they can't make a decision on who's going to lead the squad? Can you imagine George Russell?
It's happened at McLaren before, except the beneficiary was Ferrari. So all I got to say to that is yabba dabba doo.
And we're here for it. We're here for all of that. And let's segue right into, since we're talking about Mercedes, George Russell, 2 podiums in a row, Kimi Antonelli, driver of the day. This is the quiet team that's going about the work without making any strategy blunders or having any major issues with the car and just putting in the work.
They don't have the fastest car. I mean, that's clear. They're probably this number 2 or number 3, but they have 2 very strong drivers. I mean, Kimi's obviously proving He belongs in the big show.
Oh yeah.
No question, which is exactly what the Mercedes team was telling me in Las Vegas in their paddock club. They said, Scott, his data is off the charts. He belongs in this thing. There's a reason we're putting him in the car. It's not because we like him. You're right. Look, although everyone loves the kid, he's really sweet.
Oh, he's
And,
sweet. Yeah, he's a good
he's
kid.
sweet. And I've met him, and he is really sweet. But George Russell is super consistent. He's sort of driving now the way he reminds me of the way he drove his first year with the team, except he's not getting P5 every race, when he was in 2022, but he's getting P3, which is probably not good enough for the world championship, but it depends on what happens.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
think consistency always if you're consistent, you're there at the end. And all you need is somebody to DNF, somebody to run into their teammate, something strange to happen, and then all of a sudden you win the world title. And I like George Russell's consistency and I like his demeanor this year. It's obvious that even though Kimi Antonelli is a wonder kid, he's faster than Kimi, especially over one lap. And Kimi's still getting used to the car. And maybe by, I'd say, 3/4 of the season, we'll really see the pace that Kimi can garner from that car because right now he's still getting used to everything. And he's doing a hell of a job. But George, even I think when Kimi's near the end of the year, I still think George is going to be faster over one lap because he's Mr. Saturday Night.
yeah, no. George is an excellent qualifier. Also, I think after what happened in Monza last year, I think Kimi is keeping back a little bit of pace because he doesn't want to crash the car
Yes.
in
Yes.
practice or qualifying. I think he and Toto have spoken, and I think the goal is to qualify well, to get in the race, score points, but not to embarrass himself.
And
Um,
I think that's the perfect strategy for a young driver who's new to F1, who's new to the team. Just don't crash the car. Keep a little bit off your pace, just a little bit, take it off, just so you can come home in the points. And I think that's the perfect strategy for him. And if I was team principal and you were team principal, that's the strategy I would employ for Kimi Antonelli. And it's
I think
working.
in the second half of the year, especially when they get to the European part of the circuit and tracks that Kimi's been racing his whole life. Sort of like what happens with Oscar. When Oscar has gone to those tracks, he's crushed it. Whereas when he
Mhm.
gets to flyaway tracks in his first few years, he wasn't as good. I think Kimi's going to step it up, and you're going to see him take more risks. You may see him crash more there. But in these tracks that he's unfamiliar with, he's been more conservative. That's what I see from Kimi, and I think we're going to keep seeing that from Kimi.
Now,
In these
speaking of conservatism and not being conservatism and conservative, what do we got to do with our team? What do we got to do with these Ferrari guys? A double DQ, one with the weight, the other with the plank. But they won the sprint race, Scott. Hamilton won the sprint race, the first win in the history of Lewis Hamilton in sprint races. Did you know that? That's his first sprint race win. Not
Also, the
only
first pole position of a driver over 40 in about 30 years since Nigel Mansell did it.
now, look at this picture, and we've already had 2 races where we have to put this picture up because of I don't wanna say Ferrari clownness is back, but it looks like Ferrari clownness is back.
Well, here's the deal. They changed their car between
Why,
the sprint
Scott?
race and the main race. And I don't know why, but Lewis said
Why?
they changed the car significantly between the sprint race and the main race. And as a result, it no longer handled. The only thing I can think of is that the tire deg was too high. And
Yes.
they had to, because he complained of graining on the left front tire almost immediately in the sprint race. And because he had clean air, he was able to handle it because you don't deg your tire as much when you're in clean air instead of dirty air. Um, I have a feeling that the reason they changed the setup was they threw more downforce onto the car to reduce the tire degradation. That's my educated guess based on my own driving experience. I don't know that. No one from Ferrari told me that. But why else would they have changed the setup?
Now,
That's
here the question I would have, and I thought about that, what you're just saying, and I read one of the people on Twitter, the F1 Twitter, they mentioned the same thing. And I guess they had a little insight into the garage and they were told what you just said. But my question would be is if it's working and if it's not broke, why are you messing with it? Because if Lewis can be first in the sprint race, and Charles had great pace near the end of that sprint race. Leave the cars the same, and then
mm,
just see if you can eke out a little bit more. Because if you looked at their qualifying in the sprint race, it was way ahead of their qualifying in the regular race, and it would have been on pole again. So I don't understand the changes. I just don't.
I all I can say is they probably looked ahead and they saw what the drop off or the deg was going to be and the length of the race, and they thought that it just couldn't work for that length. That they would definitely have a two stop. Maybe they were thinking of doing a one stop. That's my guess. Is that they couldn't. They would have had to do a two stop based on the rate of degradation they saw in the sprint race. That's
Now
the only thing I
here,
can come up with.
here's our FIA saying that Charles was, and from what I'm reading this, he was actually 1 kilo underweight. 1 kilo.
Yeah.
Is that do you think that's because the end plate being off, or do they get to
Oh, they
replace
added
the end
that.
plate before they weigh it?
They added that back. Look, this sometimes happens in a sprint weekend. Remember Texas,
Mhm.
2023. Both Lewis and Charles on different teams were disqualified for being too low. Their ride height was too low, both of them in different cars. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon in a sprint weekend. What is very uncommon is for the same team to have both cars disqualified for two different reasons. So
The
you had
first
one,
time in Ferrari history that they've had 2 DQs in
mamma
one
mia,
race.
mamma
The
mia.
first time.
I
And, it wasn't just Charles and Lewis getting DQ'd, it was our guy Pierre Gasly also got DQ'd for being underweight. So,
For him, it didn't matter because he wasn't in the points. I mean,
now
for
Lewis did you read this? So, Lewis's plank, from what I read, was the size of a playing card in wear. The size of a playing card, that was the difference between disqualification and his points counting. It was the size of a playing card, the width.
yep.
That is very, very, very minor.
Again, Ferrari made the same mistake with Charles in 2023 in Austin, and they just set the ride height too low. And these things tend to happen occasionally in a sprint weekend because you don't have three practices, you just have one. And it's unfortunate, but it sometimes occasionally happens. And what really sucks for Ferrari is they lost something like eight. They lost their P5 and their P6, which was a mediocre result to begin with, by the way. Wasn't a great result, but that was like something like 18 points. And as a result, guess what? They're in fifth in the World Constructors Championship. You know who they're tied with? Williams.
Williams?
You know who they're 3 points in front of? Us.
3 points in front of I don't know.
Us.
No, it ain't
Haas.
that bad, is it?
Haas has 14 points, and Williams has 17 points, and Ferrari has 17 points.
And Williams, they've already equaled their point total from all of last year.
Well, Alex is on fire. He has risen to the challenge of El Matador. But
Now,
Ferrari is really having a rough start. Let's be clear. McLaren had a rough start last year and came on like a lion after in the middle of the year. So to all the tifosi out there, it doesn't mean all is lost with two races. There are 22 races to go. It's a bad start. It's disappointing. They need to fix it
they need
immediately.
to fix it immediately.
Fix it
And
immediately.
it better be ready by Japan or I'm going to be pissed.
My understanding is the upgrades are not coming in Ferrari until Bahrain.
Oh, wow. That's
Yep.
that's quite a while.
That's
Now,
what's being reported. No one at Ferrari told me that, but that's what's being reported in the media.
here's the other controversy that happened over the weekend with Ferrari. And let's watch it. And then, Scott, you tell me what you think.
You had to tell the drivers to swap positions, and he wasn't too happy, Lewis Hamilton. I don't know if you've had a word with him.
Not really, because the first call came from Lewis. He proposed to swap. That you have to listen to the full story. Lewis proposed to swap, and then he picked up a little bit the pace and he swapped, and it's not an issue at all.
So it's a situation that we probably make more dramatic than it was.
Oh, but I'm used to. You know that I'm used to from the beginning of the season. Each time that we are saying white, tons of people are saying black, and when we are saying pink, it's gray. But it is like it is, and I don't want to fight with this. Lewis proposed to swap, and I'm sure that I will have tons of questions about this, but it's a joke.
Now, when you're watching the race, you don't hear the part where Lewis proposed to swap. You only hear them saying, "Oh, it's team orders. Oh, they're swapping. Oh, this must be an embarrassment for Lewis being at Ferrari." But he's the one who said, "I'm struggling here. I think I'm going to let Charles ahead." And then they were saying, "Well, you swap now, swap now." And he's like, "I'll tell you, we're going to swap because I don't." He doesn't want to lose anything. And I also thought that it was strange that now that they brought Lewis in to change tires because they thought he was losing so much, he was having problems on those tires, and maybe new tires would help him. But if they would have left him out, I think that Max wouldn't have passed Charles because Lewis would have been the buffer, and he would have held Max back a little bit and let Charles get away, and then Max would have passed Lewis, and then they would have had the 4 and 6 instead of a 5 and 6. And then have been disqualified anyway. But strategy-wise, I think that would have been a better call.
You're right. The funny part was it was even more sympathetic to Lewis than that. The reality is Charles ran into Lewis trying to overtake him and damaged his floor. And Lewis lost downforce and performance and was starting to fall behind at pace. Because that happened, that is why Lewis said, "You know what? Let Charles overtake me because I can't keep up." So Lewis selfishly, after Charles damaged his car, said, "You know what? Let Charles overtake." That also wasn't mentioned by Formula One when they put up this radio message, which fooled me too. And I'm like, hey, Lewis is being a jerk here. He is slower. He's slowing Charles down. Why is he being such a jerk and not letting him by? Then I realized Lewis is the one who got damaged, suggested Charles overtake him because he was damaged, and just simply wanted Charles to overtake him in a place where Lewis's own race wasn't ruined too much. But none of that came across. Lewis just
none of
like
that came out. And there it is right there on his radio. I think I'm gonna let Charles go because I'm struggling, but they don't show that. And with all the drama going on at Ferrari, do they need to add more fuel to this flame? Do they need to add more? It's already dramatic enough. And I'm kind of disappointed at Sky Sports, ESPN, and all F1 TV, all the people who broadcast this and didn't give the viewer the real story.
Yeah, it definitely made Lewis look bad, and I was happy that Fred immediately corrected it because when you see it in context, Lewis actually was being a great teammate, and he could have been completely pissed off at Charles for damaging his car, for recklessly sort of running into him from behind, which he did. It was a mistake; it wasn't on purpose, but he was a good teammate and said, "You know what? I'm damaged. Let him go."
Now, let's get into more controversy, Scott. What is a controversial Chinese Grand Prix here where we have your guy, the one that everybody seems to either love or love to hate? It's according to what side you're on. But here's one, Christian Horner.
Hasn't had the best of days. 14th in the sprint race, last today. Do we have a little Liam problem here?
Well, I mean, it's been a tough day in the office for him today, so we'll have a good look at it and go through it, and obviously try and give him the best car we can for tomorrow.
Yeah, but you didn't. You need him to score the constructors' points. You didn't pay off Checo for this, did you? I mean, the point was to replace Checo with a quicker driver, and is he just not a quicker driver?
As I say, we'll have a good look at it, and we'll do what we can tomorrow.
All right. Well, good luck with it. Thanks for talking to us. Cheers.
Finally, people are actually asking Red Bull hard questions.
We don't have a Liam problem. We don't have a driver problem. We have a car problem at Red Bull. Red Bull is a burying ground for drivers' careers because nobody but Max can drive a car that is that strong in the front and that bias towards oversteer. I mean, look at all the excellent drivers who've been destroyed by Red Bull. Gasly, Albon, Checo Perez, the king of the midfield. Gasly, a race winner. Albon, multiple podium winner, one of the best karters in history. Liam Lawson did great in Super Formula, excellent in F2, great in DTM, almost won, came in P2. These are excellent drivers. Okay. It's sort of like when you're dating somebody and every relationship, burns up in flames. Okay. Eventually you have to realize the problem isn't them, it's you. And Christian and Dr. Marco need to look themselves in the mirror for once and stop destroying drivers' careers and recognize the problem is with the damn car. As Toto said, as he told Toto, change your effing car. Well, he needs to do that. What they need to do is to take that second car for the second driver and develop it to be more neutral in handling so that a mere mortal, i.e. not Max Verstappen, can drive it. Let Max drive his car the way he likes it, but develop that second car so that somebody else can drive it. And maybe then they'll have a chance at the Constructors' Championship. But the difference.
Now, I got two questions on that. Well, one's a statement and one's a question. The first question would be, would it cost more money to develop two separate cars?
Yes, but what is costing them a lot of money is losing all those constructors points because they ain't going to be first with this hunk of junk. They ain't going to be second. They ain't going to be third either. Because let me tell you, my buddies at Mclaren, my buddies at Ferrari, my buddies at Mercedes are going to wax them because they're a one-car team. And they're a mediocre one-car team right now.
They're a mediocre one-car team.
They have a midfield car that the best driver, I think, who's potentially ever driven is driving. And he is driving the wheels off that car to get it on the podium to maybe P3, P4, or P4. Okay, anyone else, that car is a P20 merchant right now.
Now,
Okay.
I'm going to give you the other side of this. And the other side would be, why all of a sudden now are people saying it's the car where when it was Checo in the car, they were saying it's the talent, it's Checo. But now, and this is coming from the other side now. Now that they have a Caucasian driver in the car, now it's not the talent, it's the car. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah, I've seen comments like that. Checo didn't get as much benefit of the doubt because Checo was a veteran driver, like 10 years or something in F1 before he set foot in a Red Bull, several hundred race starts, king of the midfield, race winner, multiple race winner, talented driver. The expectations on Checo were higher because of his talent. But you get somebody like a Liam, and you start to pair that with the pattern of other drivers, the Thai driver, not a white guy, the Thai driver, Alex Albon or Pierre Gasly. And you start to see a pattern of these young drivers is crashing and burning. And then you look back at Checo and you're like, not even Checo can drive the car. But I think the reason that Checo might have been judged more harshly is because he was a super experienced driver and a race winner before he ever set foot in a Red Bull, not because
Now,
he's Mexican.
did you see the interview with Alex Albon on another podcast? And I don't mind broadcasting and promoting other podcasts because we're all podcast family. Did you see it where he was talking about how Max drives the car and how he had trouble with it? And the great analogy he gave was if you play video games and you put the vibration and the tectonic or the feel all the way to the end, he said that's what Max likes. And he's like, no one can, he's like, as soon as you touch it, like if you play video games and you put it all the way to the end, as soon as you touch it, your character moves all the way across the screen. And it's really hard to play like that. Most people have it neutral. My son is really, really good. So he has his like 3/4. But for me, I have it a little under average because I like to, when I'm playing video games, I like to like go. I would say I like to use my running speed as my pace instead of the walking speed. But he likened it to each race. Think about this. It's all the way at the end, and that's why Max is such a freak of nature because I watched another, when
Yep.
he was driving GTS cars or GTR cars, I think it was,
GT race cars in
I think he
German
was
DTM.
driving GT, yeah, and they were, like, stunned. They were looking at the data going, I've never seen anything like this." He's like,
He's great.
When I go to the bar and I'm gonna tell this story, no one's gonna believe me. This guy just gets in the car, he's setting fastest lap after fastest lap. He's giving us data we haven't even seen before. So Max is a freak of nature, and I'm finally I had a lot of Max hate in years previous. I did. I know because he ran into Lewis in the 2021. Okay, okay. But I'm over that. The guy can drive his ass off.
Yeah, no,
He
you're right. It's
might
the
be the
Alex.
best.
I think he probably is. But you're correct. Alex Albany went on the High Performance podcast, and he had the analogy of the mouse, of the computer mouse, and basically said Max turns the mouse up every race. He pushes the team to turn the sensitivity up more and more and more. And it's just like my wife and myself. I can't use my wife's mouse because she has such a sensitive mouse that I literally cannot use her computer because I don't have that hand-eye coordination, and she does. And
Mhm.
it's the same as any other driver and Max. And with Max, just taking it back to the car, if you look at your car over here, that front end is
Mhm.
super planted, and that back end over here is incredibly loose. That's the way Max likes it. And no other driver can drive the car like that. It is so unstable in the rear. That's called oversteer. Basically, the
Mhm.
rear end wants to come out. And he can dance with that car on the razor's edge, and no one else can do it. And yet, if you ask a racer driver, a lot of them will tell you loose is fast. And that's what they mean, that the rear end has tons of oversteer dialed into it. But Max is on a different level of what he likes. And they're setting the car up that way. And yes, it would cost more money to do that. But if they really can't have this kind of situation where you have one driver here and another driver who's basically useless.
Now, here's a question for you. Can't since that's is fuel, why can't they set Max's car up with more fuel and the other car up with less fuel? I don't understand why that's such a hard ask to do.
Not an engineer, but they will always prioritize Max, and they should set Max's up car the way he likes it. But they can certainly detune, for lack of a better word, the other driver's car even a little bit, make it a
Mm,
little more drivable. Look, the maximum limit of the car will be less, but if the driver has more confidence in the car to push, the driver will drive faster. It's sort of like the V carb car, or now Racing Bulls. The Racing Bull car, as Max says, is much easier to drive. And he says Liam Lawson will be faster in that car. The absolute limit of that car is lower than the Red Bull.
right.
But the average driver will drive it a lot faster than the Red Bull because it's that much easier to drive.
And
That's
we're going
that.
to get to the racing bulls blunders, but let's hear what one Rafe Schumacher had to say about our guy Yuki going to Red Bull by Japan.
Von F1 Insider. Ich habe das gecheckt auch. Und zwar, dass Liam Lawson jetzt schon raus ist aus dem Red Bull fürs nächste Rennen und Tsunoda wird ihn ersetzen. Das ist noch nicht so ganz bestätigt, aber
So he's saying that it's already confirmed that Yuki's going and that one Liam Lawson will be out of the car. So Yuki in the Red Bull. What do you think about that?
I think Yuki should have been in that car to begin with, number one. But number two, given that Red Bull put Liam in the car, Liam deserves a fair shot before they
I think
pitched him.
so. Yeah,
2 races is
2 races.
laughable.
It's laughable.
And there's a reason why Christian gets booed in public when he goes to public events. And this is why. I mean, it's disgusting. 2 races. Give me a break on tracks the guy's never done in a car that no one seems to be able to drive. 2 races? It's disgusting. And I think it's unfair. And I think the problem is they need to look in the mirror and just admit that, as Toto said, Checo said the car is fucked. It is.
I
But
almost think like I've been wanting Yuki to get that seat for so long, but seeing the dynamics, I think it's better for Yuki just to get out of the racing Red Bull family totally. Like get away from Racing Bull. Get out of that team. Get out of Red Bull. Get out of Racing Bull. Just go. Go somewhere else. Because
he's
I don't think that even when he gets this seat by Japan, I don't think he's going to have the support that he should.
And I don't know. I mean, Ralph Schumacher says a lot of things that turn out not to be accurate. So I don't know if it's really going to be Japan, but it's pretty clear that a change is coming. Helmut Marko was spotted in the Alpine hospitality this weekend at China. And there's lots of rumors that Liam is going to be out. And
Wait. Out?
Yes. And Franco Colapinto is rumored to be taking Yuki's seat in Racing Bulls.
But
On a
wait,
low.
what about all the money that Alpine paid for Franco? How's that
Well,
going to
Red
work
Bull
out?
has more money than Alpine, and they're thinking the talk is they're going to loan him out from Alpine.
But wait, now what's that young driver that they have in the Racing Bull tree that's supposed to be really, really good? The young
Arvid
kid.
Litvak,
Yeah.
but
Now
he's too
he's
green.
what? He's too
He's,
green.
I mean, he's just starting out in F2. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have enough experience yet to jump to F1 yet. But he is in the tree though.
So Liam Lawson would be totally out on the.
That's
That's.
the
I
rumor.
mean,
I don't know, but I think that would be awful. But that's the rumor. And why would Marco be in the Alpine hospitality at the Chinese Grand Prix? To taste the coffee? Marco doesn't do social calls.
I'm kind of torn by
Yeah.
hearing that because even though I'm not a big Liam Lawson fan, I think he deserves at least a real 4 to 6 race shot. Two
Yeah.
races, even though he was 20 and 20, which is not 20. I mean, that's not, I mean, he's fighting with Sauber. That's not good. You can't be in a Red Bull car and fighting the Sauber. You just can't. You
No.
can't. But did he really get a shot? Because he looked. First of all, I thought Yuki should have got the seat. Okay, let's go beyond that.
I did too.
If you give a guy the seat, is 2 races enough? I don't think so. I don't see how 2 races is a good barometer of what he could do. I just don't see it.
I'd give him until the summer break. I would give him at least half the European season on tracks that he's very familiar with. See how he does. But Red Bull, as you know, is the least patient and the most brutal team in F1. And I do think they're going to pull the trigger soon, whether it's this race or next race or the race after. It's not going to be long. That's pretty clear. And they're not giving a lot of supportive public signs. And you're right. I mean, in China, Liam qualified P20 for the sprint and the main race. And, Ollie Behrman went whizzing by him in the main race saying, ciao.
Ciao. I love Ali. That was great. I think Ali had a great race. The Haas made a great comeback on in this circuit. They looked great. They had Ollie Berman was passing people and he looked racy. I was really happy for him because the first race he had some problems, but he came back with a vengeance.
Well,
And
the
I
year of
think
the snake has turned into the day of the bear.
the day of the bear.
I
Now,
love the Haas boys. They were great. I like Ocon.
yeah, I like Ocon too. They double points, and
Hey,
Ocon looked good. The
he
car
had a
looked
great
good.
pass on Kimi Antonelli. I mean, I love Kimi, but even Kimi didn't think he should have been driver of the day because everyone loves Kimi because you can't help but love Kimi. But
Right,
he didn't. But he started 8th. He ended 8th. Well, and then he got promoted to P6 because of the DQs. But
right.
even he didn't think he deserved driver. The driver of the day was one of the Haas drivers, either Behrman or Ocon. But it's tough for Ocon to be driver of the day because he's not popular.
He's not
Uh,
popular, yeah, but
uh,
yeah, one of them deserved it for sure.
one of
I
them
mean,
deserved.
It would have been Yuki Tsunoda, and watch this segue, Scott. It would have
Oh,
been Yuki Tsunoda if not for the
oh,
Racing
no.
Bulls strategy blunders. Are they who let's dive into this, Scott, and you tell
Oh,
me more about this strategist that left Ferrari and why he got the job at Racing Bulls and why he is killing this team because they could have scored points in Australia. Dou- They should have been double points here. Now, when you looked at the race and they pulled them in, Lance Stroll, believe it or not, was the
mhm.
barometer. He
Oh, yeah.
went so long on those on those hard tires that it told everybody that we can go long on the
It's a
tires.
one-stop race.
So
Yep.
why in the world would they pull Yuki in and then at least split the strategy and then pull Isaac in, who was having a fabulous race? He was look that was such a confidence booster for Isaac Hajar. He looked so good, especially after him crying his eyes out in Australia. And your strategist is going to do this to them?
Uh, look, Laurent Mekies was the sporting director at Ferrari when in 2022 under Pinotto, when they made all those horrible mistakes with Charles, stay out, stay out. At Monaco, at Silverstone, you know, under him was strategy, and now he goes to Racing Bulls as team principal. Guess what? It feels just like Ferrari 2022. They have a fast car and the worst strategy on the grid. So everyone else is doing
Worse.
a one stop. It's clear that it's a one stop. It's clear you can do a one stop because it was cool. There was a cloud over the track. The temperature was low, so the deg was not as high as expected. Lance Stroll showed everybody it was a one stop. And then they bring these poor guys in for a two stopper. And they murder them. And now they're P15, P16 merchants. And then so their race is over. Then on top of it, poor Yuki's front wing collapses, which is sad. So Yuki had a double whammy, ended up, I think, finishing last among the runners because of that. But it just you got to feel for those drivers. Both of them, Isaac Padger qualified, I think, seventh. The best finish ever for the best quali ever for a Red Bull Junior Team driver on that track. And they should have been double point. They should have been where Haas was, and they
Yeah.
weren't. Not because of their driving, not because of their cars, but because of the moron strategists at Racing Bulls, um, who just don't know what they're doing. I mean, it literally looks like Ferrari of 2022 all over again because it kind of is.
Now, my question to you is can Christian Horner actually call and say, okay, we need to have a meeting?
Yes.
And he should, because I know we have all this controversy at the top team, but the sister team actually should be like third or fourth in the constructors title right now because Yuki would have been, I think he'd have been fifth in Australia, and then here he'd either been fifth or sixth. So what the hell, man? And
Circle the rest of the rest.
I've, and ahead of Aston Martin for sure.
Yeah, no, fifth, 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 right behind. It should fifth right now, ahead of Williams, right behind the top four.
Yeah, and it's all because some guy can't even. I mean, my God, we're all watching the race. We all know it's a one stop. Did he just get out? Did he get out the Pirelli sheet and Pirelli's thing says, "Well, it's going to be a two-stop race," and he goes, "Well, it says two-stop here. This is what we're going to do right here." It says it. They put it out.
I don't know. And by the way, they had 2-second pit stops too. So like the pit stops were good too. They were fast, but the strategy just I can't get inside their head other than to say there needs to be a serious shakeup in strategy on that team because they are murdering their drivers who are doing great. They have a great car. It's the best in the midfield, in my opinion. Great car, great driving. And I think Liam will be super fast if he's back on that team. He was fast before the car was that good on that team.
And you know what the tragedy of this whole thing is? It's two tragedies. One, it's the best looking car on the grid because that livery is fire. That is the white livery. I don't care what car you put it on. That white livery looks great. Then the second thing is now Yuki is he's been there for what's this, his third or fourth season at Racing Bulls.
Yeah.
He's the leader, and
Oh, yeah.
he's
Fourth season, I think.
yeah. Think about all the data and all the things he's done to help this team be to where they are,
Mhm.
and he has nothing to show for it. I mean,
No
because they
podium.
keep screwing up the strategy, and they look great in the sprint race. And the reason why they look great in the sprint race is because guess what? You didn't have to have any pit stops.
No strategy.
Yeah. Yeah,
No
yeah,
strategy.
no strategy, no strategy. So maybe Yuki, and I know Isaac's new. He's a rookie. I don't expect that for him. But I always say everybody needs to do what Carlos Sainz does. Everybody. Carlos Sainz basically calls his own strategy. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. Nope, that I'm not doing that. And I think more of these drivers need to do that. I don't know if it's something on confidence or
Yeah,
if it's just that's the way Carlos is. What do you think?
most of them don't have that confidence and self-assuredness and assertiveness. Carlos is sort of on his own there. He's just so strong on strategy that teams let him call a strategy. He's like, no, I'm doing a one stop. Most of the drivers don't have that level of race intelligence that Carlos does.
You know who I think has that? I mean, I've seen Lewis do it in the wet a lot of times. Max does it a lot, but George Russell
Yep.
calls a lot of
Yeah.
good calls. A lot.
He will try to call his own strategy. Occasionally he gets overruled. He got
Yeah.
overruled this weekend. He got overruled.
Yeah, he did.
He wanted to go longer. Yep.
Now, Scott, give us your biggest surprises after 2 races so far.
My biggest surprise,
Oh.
Ferrari doing poorly.
Oh.
And so far, Alex Albon crushing my boy Carlos Sainz.
Now, is this a realistic thing where this is what it actually looks like when a above average driver goes to a new team? Is this what you think it looks like? Like he really has to get used to the nomenclature, he really has to get used to everything before he does well. Because Hamilton scoring, winning a win already, he's kind of, one of the best ever, so he's a freak. But
Yeah, Carlos
the
is not
normal guy, huh? Carlos is not Lewis.
excellent driver. Lewis is like Max, a generationally talented driver. There is a
So
difference.
So this is the normal good F1 driver going to a new team, and this is what happens.
Yeah, there's an adaptation there. In this case, he's going back. Carlos has had Mercedes power before. He had it at McLaren, so he does know Mercedes, but it's a total adaptation, especially going backwards from what was a very good car last year at Ferrari to a not quite as good car at Williams. I mean, it's okay. It's not a bad car, but it ain't the SF24.
Right.
And I think it is an adaptation, and it's going to a team without the resources, quite a Ferrari, and without the infrastructure, without the Tifosi. It's definitely an adjustment. When we're at the Williams end, when you're at the Williams garage, I can tell you because I've been in the Williams garage as their guest, and at the Ferrari garage, it's a hell of a lot quieter at the Williams garage. It's a different
Really?
Oh yeah, it's a different vibe. I mean, when you're in the Ferrari garage, it's swarmed with guests and with excitement. It's Ferrari. It's a show. Celebrities, guests, a vibe. Williams, it's a lot quieter. I mean, it's not a ghost town. It's not. I mean, Haas is super
A
quiet.
ghost town. Right.
Car is a real ghost town. Steak is a ghost town. Williams isn't quite that quiet, but it's pretty quiet. Unless they qualify super high up and it's Vegas. Like when they were 5-6 in Vegas, all the celebrities went there because they thought they were going to do something special. But that was in 2023. But it's pretty quiet. It's a totally different vibe. It's a nice team, very professional, old line team, but it ain't Ferrari. It's a total difference. And I do think psychologically it's been a shock. Carlos didn't see it coming, and I think he's still getting used to and in the acceptance phase of what happened. So
now, does Williams scoring all these points, does this show how really good Alex Albon is, or does this show that Carlos Sainz was overhyped?
I think the car is better this year than last year. I think it's more versatile, more controllable, more predictable. I think what you're seeing is Alex rising up to the challenge because the word was if he doesn't do well against Carlos, he's done. And I think this is Albon really, pushing hard to save his career, to really look good. And I think it's Carlos, the first few races underperforming,
Mm.
and getting sort of used to taking some time to adjust and not being as comfortable with the Williams car as we hoped he would be. That doesn't mean in a few races he won't be in his groove, but I don't think Stella's got her groove back yet.
That was good. That was good. Well, that's about it for the Chinese Grand Prix, which was I don't watching it was it a spectacular watch compared to Australia? No, not at all. Australia was a fabulous, like one of the best opening season races I've seen. Now, before we leave, obviously you want to talk about Lance Stroll because you love Lance Stroll because you just put on the Aston Martin hat. So go ahead and talk about Lance Stroll and say how much you love Lance Stroll. And actually, Lance Stroll looked pretty good this last race, and I was kind of surprised.
I can tell you about Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll has about, because I've been a frequent Aston Martin guest, has about 5 to 6 really good races a year and about 18 bad ones. His good races are coming at this time of the year. Lance has the talent to do well in F1. He's not championship material, but he can be a very solid driver. And you're seeing the last 2 races, he's been in the points every time, all 3 times so far. And
Yeah.
when it reminds people that when he's on his game, he can actually drive. The problem with Lance is he's never been talent, but focus.
Focus and consistency.
For his ability, he is a good driver when he focuses.
Now, that's a good point. Now, do you think it's because he doesn't need Formula One to be successful? He's already rich. He has a billionaire dad. So if he loses his seat tomorrow, Lance Stroll's life's going to be fabulous still. Does he not have the drive that some of these other people do on being consistent and putting in the work? Because sometimes I see Lance and it looks like he either partied a little bit too much, his hair looks disheveled. He has this very aloof, I don't care what's going on around me. I don't care about these questions. And his interviews are probably the worst. That's what I would show every rookie. Like, don't answer questions like this guy because his answers are curt, they're aloof, and sometimes I think they're borderline rude. And that is not what you want to show or market as the guy who's driving your car if you're Aston Martin.
Yeah. And he also doesn't appear in their paddock club, by the way, ever to talk to guests, which is unprecedented, basically. In the 3 times I was there, he never showed up once. Look, I look at it this way. Lance has the talent. As a driver, I respect his talent. When he's on his game, he can drive. What I don't know is he living his dream or Lawrence's dream, his dad's? And that's really, to me, always been the open question about Lance Stroll. And I don't know the answer. But as a driver, he has the talent. He is a good driver when he is focused. When he's not focused, he can make horrific decisions. But when he is focused, like he's been in the last 3 races, like he was in Bahrain in 2023 after he broke multiple bones and he was driving in intense pain and got a P6, he's sort of a mystery wrapped up inside an
enigma.
I find him fascinating in his own way.
Wrapped up in an enigma. Now, before we leave you with, I think, as usual, when we have Scott on, a really great show for all of you to watch, and we have a lot of gems in here. Do you expect Liam Lawson to be in the seat when we come back for the Japan Grand Prix? Yes or no?
No. I think they're pitching him for Yuki.
So Yuki in Red Bull, Franco Colapinto in Racing Bulls, or will they let Liam go back?
I think it is such a bad look. And I think the contractual issues between Williams and Alpine to get Franco that quickly are so difficult. Between the PR nightmare and the contractual issues, I think Liam will go to Racing Bulls. Because that's where he should have been.
You heard it here first.
for more
You
training.
heard it. You heard it here first on America F1. Thank you for joining us, and as always, keep on racing, everybody.